Alright, this is Jason with the Primal Outdoors channel, and I am going to do one final review of the KIA Telluride that I got from Ron Tonkin KIA. I am on my way back to return the car. We've had it for 6 months. We've been on multiple camping trips, multiple overland trips, some long road trips, so it's got lots of miles on it, and I've got a pretty good feeling on how I feel about the vehicle at this point, and I thought I'd start to share some of those thoughts with you. Now keep in mind, if you are looking at this as a review video for the KIA Telluride, this review is going to revolve around camping and overland. It's not going to be a full feature, go through every feature of the vehicle. This is a modified EX. If you want to know what all the modifications we did to the vehicle, please check out the video in the right hand corner, and you can see all that there. I'm not really going to go through much of that. In this video, it's just going to be kind of how the vehicle performed, where I think it was great and where I think it could be better. Alright, so let's get started with this review with the things that I really liked about this car. The first thing we'll talk about is its performance. This has a 6-cylinder with 291 horsepower and 261 foot-pounds of torque. To put that in some perspective, my old Ford, 99 Ford F250 with a V8 in it, the 5.4 liter V8, has 220 horsepower and 290 foot-pounds of torque. So this vehicle actually has more horsepower, not quite as much torque. So in a V6 package, this thing does extremely well, and coupled with the 8-speed transmission that it has, it actually well outperforms my old Ford pickup when towing the trailer. Highway speeds, I can travel a lot higher, and you know, even getting around the backcountry, it just does a lot better at pulling the trailer all the way around as far as that's concerned. When I'm out on the highway and I need to pass somebody, it's not a problem. I can just shift down a couple of gears, get the RPMs up, and this thing will pop up to 80 to 100 miles an hour, no problem. I heard some earlier reviews, people complaining that this vehicle didn't have a turbo and that it's naturally aspirated. I don't really see that as a problem. I think this vehicle has plenty of performance that will meet anybody's need out in the field. So as somebody who really likes driving a manual transmission, I really do like this 8-speed automatic that's in the KIA Telluride. If you put it in drive, it handles just like an automatic transmission would. But one of the things, especially towing, that I miss is the ability to control my gears myself. If you're hitting a hill and you're starting to lug, I like the fact that in a manual transmission that I can manually shift down, get my RPMs up, and be able to maintain my momentum going up the hill. The KIA Telluride gives me that same option even though it's an automatic. If I shift it over, I can now actually control all 8 speeds of the transmission. So I can actually just downshift just like I was in a manual, get it into a lower gear, get my RPMs up, and be able to maintain that momentum going up a hill. This also comes in super handy when you're trying to traverse difficult obstacles out in the backcountry. I do wish it had low range, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. But in the end, I really do like this, and it kind of makes a nice gap for people who really do like a manual transmission, and as more and more vehicles are basically just all coming out as automatics these days. All right, so let's talk about drivability of the vehicle. One of the things I've really noticed about this car, even though that it has the stock suspension, we did put a 2-inch spacer lift on it, but the actual suspension itself is still the stock suspension that comes with the EX model vehicle. Its ride is very good. It drives really nice and comfortable on-road, scenic byways. It handles very well, even up to speeds, but it still handles really well off-road too. Like, the suspension does a really good job at just seeming to soak up the bumps really well and give you a nice smooth ride. Last year I got the opportunity to drive a 2018 Chevy ZR2, and I really thought the ride on that vehicle was awesome, especially on washboard. Anybody who's driven washboard knows that it can be a little bit tricky. It's not only super uncomfortable, but if you get a little bit too much speed, you can get a vehicle that's not handling it well can start to hydroplane on top, and you can lose steering control and braking control. This vehicle, I felt like, handled it very well with the traction control control and everything. I never felt like I was out of control on washboard, even if I hit it a little bit at speed. It just seemed to soak up the washboard really nice. Still have maintained somewhat of a comfortable ride, or as comfortable as you ever will be on washboard. But I never felt like, again, that I was getting out of control or anything like that. It always seemed to maintain, make me feel confident in driving and maintaining steering control and braking control. Now, as far as the interior is concerned and just driving it, you know, features like the heated steering wheel on cold mornings, heated seats, and then on hot days, the ability to have cool seats is really nice. And then back here is where I keep my dogs, and there is separate control for the HVAC system in the back. So that means I can control the air conditioning back there and keep it extra cool for them, and not be freezing myself out up here, which is really great. Another feature that I really like for the dogs is the window shades in the back. I really like that. They're built in. I can bring those up, and so when you're driving, if you got sun beaten in, even with the air conditioning, it can heat up the cabin. So having those window shades blocking out the sun still helps maintain a cooler cabin and a more comfortable ride back there for the dogs. Plus, it's kind of nice too, if I have to stop somewhere on a hot day and just run into a grocery store, I can put those window shades up, put the windows all the way down, and allowing there to be a nice cross breeze through the car while I run in and go get something real quick. So yeah, overall, just driving the car, comfort of the car, just, you know, really, really nice. Now, as far as the off-road capabilities of this vehicle, it has actually impressed me a lot. I've had it on Jeep trails in Moab. I've had it on several desert overland trips, several camping trips here locally in Oregon, where some of the roads were a little bit rough and rutted out, and the vehicle has done extremely well. The traction control in this vehicle, along with the center diff lock, has given me the confidence to go just about anywhere I want to go within reason. I've even had times where the vehicle has actually been teetering on two wheels and pulling the trailer through an obstacle, and it still maintained forward momentum and was able to get me up through those obstacles. So that's a really, really impressive. I don't think my old Ford with a typical four-wheel drive system would do that. It would probably just spin and stop. Now, the thing that I have found to make that work best for you is just make sure that you are giving it good, steady, even throttle and not trying to gun it through an obstacle. If you give it good, steady, even pressure, that helps the traction control engage and to work better. If you gun it, the traction control isn't going to want to engage and you're going to spin just like any typical older four-wheel drive system would. So smooth, easy, steady pressure on the throttle is the key to, to handling most obstacles with this vehicle. As far as other things that I really like about this vehicle is its, 5,000 pound towing rating. That makes it great for me to tow my little overland trailer, which is about a little over 2,000 pounds, and it tows it very well, like I said before, as far as performance of the engine. I also really like the fact that I'm getting great gas mileage out of this vehicle. Before any of the modifications, I took it on a trip and I was averaging around 25 miles per gallon. Once we did all the modifications to the vehicle, now we're starting to get about 19 to 21. And if I'm pulling the trailer, I get anywhere from 14 to 16. So all very respectable mileages considering the way the vehicle is set up. So those are all the things that I really like about the vehicle. So let's talk a little bit about the things that maybe I'm not quite as so impressed with the vehicle. All right, so let's start right off with the biggest elephant in the room. This vehicle doesn't have the best front end clearance. Overall clearance on the vehicle isn't horrible, but it's not great. But the front end is probably its biggest Achilles heel as far as using it off-road. Your approach angle on things is going to be very limited due to the fact that you just don't have a lot of distance in the front of the vehicle. This also comes in the challenges is if you're on dirt roads that are very rutted out and have a high center, you're going to find yourself getting high center at this vehicle very easy. All right, so as I said before, I really like this automatic transmission with the ability to manually shift all 8 speeds. But the one thing that I do miss from my old Ford is a typical four-wheel drive system has low-range gearing. This vehicle does not have any low-range gears, and that can be really handy off-road, especially when I'm towing the trailer and I'm going down steep grades. It's really nice to be able to have it in the lower range gears and be able to have the transmission control my rate of descent. It's also nice if you're just on really rocky, cobbly terrain where it's just super rough. It's nice to be able to just put in that low range gear and just let the vehicle kind of crawl its way over all those obstacles versus having to have it in a higher range and be able and basically hit the obstacles at a faster rate of speed to keep the vehicle from stalling. It's just a lot easier on you. It's a lot easier on the vehicle. So in my opinion, you know, if Kia really wants to get this vehicle to be a serious off-road vehicle, they need to figure out a way to offer us a couple of low-range gears, at least two, a low 1, low 2, or change this over to an actual real four-wheel drive system with a transfer case so that we have, you know, low-range gearing. But that's one of the major components that I do miss when I'm driving this vehicle off-road. All right, so now let's talk about a little of the minor annoyances that I find with this vehicle. And these are definitely not deal breakers by any means. They're just kind of basic annoyances that you're probably gonna find with any vehicle. Now on this particular one, the front end I think actually looks really cool on this car. But it's kind of big, and when you're sitting down in it the way I am, it's kind of hard to see where the front end and the tires are in conjunction to obstacles when you're out working trails and out in the field. So if I put my head out, I can't really see real well where the front tire is versus the front. Now this is a problem I actually had on the Chevy ZR2 as well. The front end was just kind of big and bulbous, and when you're, you know, working tight trails with trees and stumps and rocks, it's kind of hard to figure out where those are compared to where your front end is, and that could be a challenge. Now, with that said, this is the EX model, and the SX model has front cameras, so that could actually solve that problem if you went one step model higher. But you'd have to consider that if you're going to change out your bumper to make sure that those cameras get reinstalled. Now, another thing for me as a person who is pulling a trailer, the mirrors are a little bit small. So when I'm out in trails and things are tight and I really need to know where my trailer's at to make sure it's going to make it around obstacles, I find this mirror really small and hard to see what's going on behind me. It's really hard for me to see where the tires are at or see where like the top of the trailer is when, you know, you're working at tight obstacles. Now, also keep in mind, I'm used to a big truck with big mirrors, and so kind of going from that to this is definitely a little bit disadvantaged, but I do find that from an overland standpoint that the mirrors are a little bit small, and I would prefer to see something a little bit bigger so that I could have a better view of what's going on behind me. Another, again, minor inconvenience is this vehicle gets really good gas mileage, as I meant before, but I also, and this is not something that I think is very specific to just the Kia, but I've noticed this on a lot of newer vehicles, that the range of a vehicle of this type is about 300 miles. And when you start actually going on overland adventures and you're traveling long distances very slow, your miles per gallon is actually going to go way down. And I find that the range on this tank isn't super great. So again, like I've seen a lot of people with Tacomas do, you might want to add a long range fuel tank, or you're definitely going to want to have some jerry cans or some kind of extra fuel supply with you. All right, so my next complaint doesn't have actually anything to do with the Kia Telluride. It has to do with pretty much every new vehicle that I see coming out these days, and that's these infotainment systems. I think they are worthless. I wish car manufacturers would ditch these things and not have them in the vehicle. The screens are horrible to look at. The apps never work, or at least I never can get them to work. And I just don't actually use it. As you can see, I've got a phone mount here, and this is where I actually keep my cell phone. And I use the GPS on my cell phone, and I use the apps as far as like listening to Pandora and all of that through my cell phone, because I can never get this thing to work very well. The GPS, I think, is very rudimentary and definitely not useful for overland in any way, shape, or form. So in my mind, if they would just ditch this altogether, give us a good tablet mount to where we could put the latest and greatest, you know, Android or Apple tablet in here, and a good way to connect to the vehicle, either Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or a hardwire connection, and then they just have an app that that allows us to get information about the car, that would be great. And then that way, like I said, as the car gets older, you could just keep switching out to the latest greatest tablet, be able to put it in here, and you're not going to end up with a vehicle. Like, I just don't see what, I mean, this thing doesn't work great now as a brand new vehicle. I can't imagine it's going to work at all 20 years from now. So to me, this is a huge piece of real estate that's on this dash that could be so much better utilized if they just gave us an awesome tablet mount. All right, so this last one's kind of minor, but this car is capable of towing up to 5,000 pounds. But you have to have a trailer brake controller for anything over 1,650. Now, the car does not come pre-wired for a 7-pin brake controller. You can see I have one here on mine, but we had to wire it. That meant we had to go, put in the brake controller, bust through the firewall with wire, run it all the way back. A lot of vehicles will have it to where you can buy the controller, you get a little cord that goes from the controller right into a socket in under the dash, and then it's wired, already pre-wired by the factory all the way back. I think that would have been a nice little addition for Kia to add, especially the fact that they did make a big deal in their promotions that this vehicle is capable of 5,000 pounds. All right, so what are my overall impressions of this car? Overall, I really did enjoy this vehicle, and I'm gonna miss having it. It's done absolutely great, and it's gotten me everywhere I really wanted to go, and it's done it very comfortably. I've taken this vehicle on some very epic trips and seen some really cool locations, and it's never let me down. So I really do like the vehicle. There are some things I would like to see better. I would love to see low range. I would like to have some better front end clearance. But again, none of those things actually stop me from getting out and doing some really cool things with this car. Now, if I would really like to see Kia come out with a new model of the Telluride that is off-road based, like say like the ZR2 or the TRD Pro or the Jeep Rubicon, for them to come out with a Telluride that comes off the lot ready for off-road adventure. I'd really like to see that. And another hurdle that I actually see that Kia has, that I think they're gonna have to try to buddy up with some of the aftermarket and try to get some things made for this vehicle. Everything that we did to the vehicle pretty much had to be either modified or custom made from scratch. And that really hurts this vehicle's opportunity or options when people are thinking about, do I buy this or say, buy this versus a 4Runner, where you could go out and buy a 4Runner and sky's the limit on off-road accessories that you can get to customize that vehicle to what you want. There's basically nothing out for this vehicle as of right now. So I think that's a big hurdle that Kia is going to have to work out. And I think if they could do that, and if they could continue to develop on this vehicle and work on its off-road capabilities while still maintaining the fact that it's a very nice driving vehicle on road, I think that they could, really take this vehicle to the next level. But anyways, that's what I have to say about this vehicle. If the Kia is something that you're interested in and you live in the Portland area, definitely go to Ron Tonkin KIA and check it out. Let them know that you heard about it on the Primal Outdoors channel, and you can get 10% off parts and service. And if you like this review, if you found it helpful, please give it a like. If you didn't find it helpful at all, please give it a dislike. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and we'll catch you guys again outside.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together, it's so beautiful.